What's going on, guys? It's David, and welcome back to a One Piece chapter review. I want to start this video off by apologizing for missing the chapter review last week. I had some personal stuff going on and wasn't able to be around my equipment, but I will be covering last week's chapter with this week's chapter in this video. So we're going to get started right away talking about last week's chapter, chapter 1002, Four Emperors versus the New Generation. I've decided that moving forward, unless it's a actual cover story serial, I'm only going to really skim over the cover pages. So I just want to establish that now, so in future videos, if I don't spend as much time talking about them, people don't get confused. But last week's cover page was Lucci feeding a bunch of pigeons. So the chapter starts off with Kaido throwing a bunch of wind scythe blade attacks at the worst generation. They're called Demolition Gust. And I really like the difference here in reactions. Kid just kind of tanks it. His mech just falls apart. And Zoro, this is actually kind of a cool moment here. Zoro takes his blade and literally, without even moving, just deflects the wind scythe that's coming at him. And the difference in reaction here is, really stark, because Kid, he's just kind of taking it oh, go ahead and cut up my mech. This whole thing was just junk anyway. But for Zoro, this attack means something completely different, because we got to remember that this is actually the move. I mean, we as the readers know that this is the move that cut off Kiku's arm. And Zoro is just now being probably the only person who saw Kiku's arm in the aftermath of the battle. Zoro's probably just now realizing that this is the move that cut off Kiku's arm. And he has this look on his face like he's going for blood. And Luffy comes in right at this moment with a huge Kong rifle. He knocks Kaido out. This is the first time we've seen him use Kong rifle. It seems pretty impactful. He knocks Kaido back, and then Kid, he immediately goes in, grabs Kaido with his giant mech, hits him to the ground with an attack called Slam Gibson. And then while Kaido is recovering from this, Law goes ahead and shambles himself up and says this really cool line about how he doesn't know the anatomy of a dragon, but he's assuming that the heart is right there. And he goes ahead and attacks Kaido with the Gamma Knife, which is the move he used on Doflamingo as his big ending move. And this move is pretty broken, but it doesn't seem to work on Kaido. And I don't know if that's just because Law doesn't understand the anatomy of a dragon, but it doesn't really affect him too much. So Kaido gets up and he's kind of just brushing it off. He's laughing and he says, "Oh, well, you guys, you are more than just people who are coming at me with guts." And it's at this moment where Killer runs forward, and this is kind of a big plus to this chapter, is that there were so many people up to this point that said that Killer did not belong on the roof. Everyone was looking at who was on the roof. You had Law, you had Kid, you had Luffy. All three of those captains in their own right. They're badass characters. They all obviously deserve to be up on the roof facing off against the Yonko, Big Mom and Kaido. But then you look at Zoro. Zoro deserves to be there. It's Zoro. We've been with Zoro forever. We know all of his badass feats. Of course he deserves to be there. This is also kind of Zoro's arc, A lot of people look at Zoro and they've been waiting for Wano to be well, Whole Cake was definitely Sanji's arc, so maybe Wano's definitely going to be Zoro's arc. And so far it's kind of been that way. And then we had Killer, and everyone was well, what is Killer doing up there? No one believed that Killer belonged up there, but I really think this chapter specifically gave Killer an amazing, there was a lot of little development with Killer. And then there was this super badass moment, because Killer, he goes running up. He's got his Punisher blade spinning, and as he's running up Kaido's back, he just goes, "Oh, well, the scales are too hard. I'm not going to be able to cut them. I'll just cut inside." And he does this huge attack called Scyther Sonic, where the panel makes it look like his blades are actually just straight cutting through Kaido. But I'm pretty sure that what's happening here is that he's using some kind of sonic boom attack in combination with his blades to actually pass through Kaido. Kind of a little bit I'm trying to describe it, or look at something in other pop culture to compare it to. But it would kind of be if you had the ability to phase through something and you just phased through a wall to grab something that was on the inside. So your hand is solid, but a bit of your arm is transparent, so you're able to like cut through it. And Killer actually damages Kaido. Like I wouldn't say he like damages him too much, but he definitely looks hurt by it. And then at this point, Luffy goes in, he hits him with a Rhino Schneider, and Kaido's about to attack him, and Zoro just goes ahead and looks at Law, and he goes, hey, can you throw me up there? And Law has this little like, oh man, like first them and now you, but he does it. He goes ahead and throws Zoro up. Kaido goes to try and hit Luffy in midair with his blast breath, his Boro breath, and Zoro gets up there. You know, Law has shambles him up. He cuts the Boro breath with his fire technique, and then he goes ahead and he launches an attack with Enma. And I can't remember what the name of the technique was. I should have had it written down here. I can't remember what the name of the technique was, but he goes ahead and he launches this attack, and I love this moment. And it is, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you right here at this point in the video. When I read the chapter last week, I was really not hyped for this chapter. I kind of looked at it and I was like, a couple really cool things happen here and there, like in this chapter. Like the Killer moment was really cool. This moment that I'm talking about right now with Zoro was really awesome. But I kind of looked at it more like this is going to be like a really great like episode of the anime when it finally gets animated. Like it's going to be really cool to see this back and forth with Kaido, but like nothing is really happening here. And honestly, by the time I finished the chapter, I kind of had this general feeling that we hadn't really gotten anywhere from where we had ended the last chapter to where we ended this chapter. But upon taking this week, like it kind of, this week not being able to get the chapter review out on time last week, it gave me time to like actually like reread this chapter and really appreciate what's going on here. Because when Zoro launches this attack, Big Mom freaks out. It literally tells Kaido, watch out. Kaido, who has tanked every single attack up to this point. Big Mom, who shouldn't have to worry about Kaido because he's taking all these really heavy moves, tells him to watch out, and he dodges. Kaido dodges this attack. And we get this, it's been all over Reddit. It was all over Reddit when this happened. Everyone's talking about this. Zoro launches this attack with Enma. It lops off one of the horns of Onigashima. This giant building that they're fighting on top of. It's hosting this huge party. 27,000 people, Kaido's forces, are at this party. There's 5 floors. This is a massive, massive place. They're fighting on the roof of it. Zoro launches this attack, clean slice, right through one of the horns of Onigashima. And it's so badass. But specifically what's badass about it is that Kaido dodged the attack. He actually felt it necessary. He felt a danger. As he was going for the attack, there's a moment where he feels this strange familiar energy coming from the attack. He doesn't recognize it as Odin's energy, but he feels this energy, and he needs to move out of the way, which tells you all you need to know about Zoro and where he's at power level wise at this point in the manga. But then after that, moving on, after that we have this moment where, so I kind of skipped over it a little bit, but one of the things that I also really liked about this chapter, I skipped over this because this actually happens right after Killer attacks Kaido with that sonic blade. Big Mom is actually kind of a badass in this fight, because right after Killer attacks Kaido, she hits him with this move called Indra, and it just brings this giant lightning bolt out of the sky. And I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier when I was talking about Killer. There's a lot of really cool things in this chapter that kind of give us a little bit of an idea about the relationship between Kid and Killer. Because earlier, right at the beginning of the chapter, when Kaido had the demolition gust, the scythe wind blades that were coming out, and it's cutting up Kid's mech, Killer is like yelling out like, Kid! And then this moment where Killer gets electrocuted and gets hit by this giant lightning bolt, Kid is like yelling out like, Killer! And it shows that, like, because up until now, like, one of the few things that we actually know about Kid is that he is a ruthless son of a bitch. We literally meet him, and he is introduced to us as being the only other supernova with a higher bounty than Luffy, but it's expressly stated that the reason why he has a higher bounty is because he's more ruthless. And we see this, like, most of the times that we see him, that little glimpse that we got when all the supernovas were entering the new world at the end of Marineford, I think it was. We see how ruthless Kid can be, but he has this relationship with Killer. And honestly, I really hope that at some point we get a little bit of a backstory between Kid and Killer. I would love to see, kind of in the way that we got Law's backstory in Dressrosa, I would love to see what happened between the two of those people, why they're so close. Because Kid is ruthless, but he cares about Killer, and Killer cares about Kid. So at this point in the manga, right after Zoro does the big badass slice technique, slices off the horn, Big Mom starts raining down lightning bolts and is taking out like everybody. Zoro gets hit, Law's getting hit, Kid's getting hit, Killer's already kind of down for the count. And I really like this show of force from Big Mom, because a lot of people up until this point in the community, even kind of before I was completely caught up to Wano and I was just like reading through Whole Cake Island, I was kind of browsing the subreddit, the One Piece subreddit, and so many people are like crapping on Big Mom. They say that Big Mom's the worst of all the Yonko, that she's not intimidating. And I personally never got that impression from Big Mom, that she wasn't intimidating. I always found her to be a credible threat. And I honestly thought that at times she would be more of a threat than Kaido was. Especially in this fight, she's dealing out most of the damage. Kaido's just tanking. And I'm not saying that she's more dangerous than Kaido, but so far what we've seen, she's dealt more damage to our little crew that's facing off against them than Kaido has. So she's raining down the lightning storms, and of course we get kind of that Enel moment from Skypiea where she's raining down the lightning, hits Luffy. Luffy's a rubber man, so lightning doesn't work on rubber. And she is, she freaks out. There's that classic line, "Why doesn't that work on you? I'm made of rubber." And then Kaido attacks him, hits him with one of his Boro breaths, and Luffy just tanks it. And Kaido's like, "How did my attack not work on you?" And Luffy just says, "Guts," which calls back to the earlier moment when they all attacked him and he says, "Oh, I see you're not just Guts." He's like, "No, I am Guts, but also I'm going to take you down." And he jumps in the air, launches off a Kong Gatling and starts beating on Kaido. And that's where chapter 1002 ends. I really like this move. Kong Gatling, we really don't see a lot of it. We actually saw it in I think it was the One Piece Stampede movie, but now it's like officially canon, which is pretty cool. It basically looks like it's an upgraded version of the Kong Organ attack, which I thought was the Gear 4th version of Kong Gatling, or of Gum Gum Gatling. But it looks like Kong Gatling is actually the Gear 4th version. I'm not sure what the difference between Kong Gatling and Kong Organ is, because they seem to be pretty similar. Maybe Kong Organ it just allows him to kind of punch in like a straight line, because Gatling typically tends to be like a huge like area of effect attack. Yeah, that's where the chapter ends, and God, this video is already like kind of long. So we're going to immediately go right into chapter 1003, because I have a lot to talk about. So chapter 1003 is called Night on the Board, and this chapter is it's a chapter where not a lot happens, but a whole lot happens. So the cover page for this is Reiju getting a cactus flower from a scorpion. I really actually like this cover page. I know that I said I wasn't going to talk about him, but it's really good to see Reiju. I really liked her character. I kind of hope she comes back. If any character is going to come back into the story from Whole Cake Island, I kind of want it to be Reiju. I really liked her dynamic with Sanji, and she was kind of like cold-hearted, but anyway, I'm rambling and I have to get on to the actual meat of this chapter. So it immediately picks up from the end of chapter 1002, where Kaido is getting absolutely beat down by Kong Gatling. And it's like actually like hurting him pretty bad. Like each hit is actually like dealing a bit of pain. And it gets to the point where, like, everyone's just kind of watching this in awe. Big Mom has her mouth just, like, agape. She has no clue what's happening. Like, what is going on? He's actually hurting him. And Luffy ends the attack with one final big Gatling punch. And he just knocks Kaido to the ground. And it's an amazing panel where you just see Kaido's big dragon body up in the sky. And his head just... the fist collides and his head just shoots down. His body's still up floating in the air. His head just shoots down and slams into the rubble. And then immediately right after this, we get what everyone has kind of been theorizing is going to be happening, because Luffy went into this fight in Gear 4th. That was how he started. Just straight out the gate, Gear 4th. And so now we have the Gear 4th timeout. He's used up too much of his haki. He deflates. Kid is freaking out because he's never seen Luffy fight before. He doesn't know Luffy's fighting style. This is Kid's first time seeing Gear Forth, so he freaks out. When did Kaido hit you? Law explains, no, this is a side effect. And Kid kind of like starts getting an idea. He's like, but if every one of those happen, like there's a price that came with that, but if every one of those hit at full power, we might actually stand a chance here. Like we need to capitalize on this. But so Big Mom tries to come in. She tries to hit him with an attack, Mother's Day Blaze, I think it's called. And Law gets a little bit of revenge here for the last chapter where she was raining down lightning on everybody. He goes ahead and shambles himself right up to her, hits her with his counter shock technique, which is the move that works kind of like the resuscitation paddles, shocks her. And this is, I believe, the first bit of actual damage to Big Mom in this fight. So we can chalk one up for Law there. So Kaido, at this point, he gets back up. He wraps his body around, like coils it up, and then unwraps very quickly. And it's a move called Dragon Twister. And he goes ahead and starts, like, it actually, from the force of him unraveling his body, uncoiling his body, it causes physical twisters, like tornadoes, to appear on the roof, which kind of cuts off Kid and Killer's attack they were going to kind of launch at him. And so Zoro stands up, and he puts Enma in his mouth. And I think that this is significant because up to this point, I'm not sure if he did it when he had Shusui, but up to this point, I'm pretty sure that his mouth has always been reserved for Wado. So he puts Enma in his mouth, and he goes ahead and he uses that black cage dragon twister that he used back in Fishman Island. And he goes ahead and he does that, and he cuts Kaido. And this is like, I really, like, this is so badass for me. And I've been seeing a lot of discourse online about what this means, because so many people don't believe, like, genuinely don't believe that Zoro is gonna take down Kaido. Like, everyone kind of, I don't know if it's because people think that he's dealing way more damage to Kaido, or like him taking down Kaido would put him too far above Sanji, and up until now Oda has been kind of trying to keep them around the same level just to stoke their rivalry. But I truly believe that ever since the time skip happened, back at this point almost close to 400, 500 chapters ago, the time skip happened, I don't think we have ever seen Zoro fight seriously. Like, so many people try to use the example, like, Zoro fought Pika in Dressrosa. There's no way he goes from fighting one of Doflamingo's, like, lieutenants to taking down a Yonko or being on par with a Yonko. But he cuts Kaido with this attack. He cuts him with Enma, and at this point, Kaido recognizes that that's Odin's sword. And I truly believe, I said it earlier in this video, but I believe that that Zoro is going to do something amazing in Wano. I really think that Wano is going to be Zoro's arc. Because if you look at all the parallels, and I really wish that I knew the Reddit user that I saw post this the other day, but there are parallels to other great heroes of Wano within Zoro. Because first off, we've already been establishing this weird connection with him and the Shimotsuki clan, which is Ryuma's old clan, the original hero of Wano, Ryuma the Dragon Slayer, the one who owned Shusui that Zoro defeated back in Thriller Bark. Ryuma slayed a dragon with one sword. Odin fought a dragon with two swords, and he didn't slay the dragon, but he damaged him with two swords. And then Zoro, 3 swords. So I really think that there is a connection there. I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon, because after this chapter, and I'll talk about it because I kind of want to, I want to talk about where I think the arc's going from here. Like what I want to have a prediction for chapter 1004. And I really think I'm going to say it right now in this video, just in case, right here in this video, or in case I don't get to talk about that at the end of this video. I think that Act 3 is ending soon. I really think, like, there's a huge debate on whether or not it's actually going to be a 5-act story. I think it is going to be a 5-act story. I think that Act 3 is probably going to end within, like, the next 2 or 3 chapters. I think it might actually end next chapter. So I don't think that Zoro is going to pull out anything super huge this chapter, but he's going to be definitely a major contender. I think that by the end of this chapter, he's going to figure out how to cut, because right now he was only able to cut Kaido with Enma, which was Odin's blade, a blade which has already cut Kaido. I think by the end of this arc, he is going to be able to cut Kaido with all 3 of his blades. But so moving along, we had the whole Twister scenario. I really think that there was a good killer moment right after this as well, before I move into like the next part, which is kind of the big focus of this chapter. It's why the chapter is named Night on the Board. So right after Zoro does the Dragon Twister thing, Kaido counters with another Dragon Twister where he coils himself up, but instead of launching out the tornadoes, he starts launching out those wind blades from the last chapter, the demolition gusts, in every direction. And it shows all the other people who are on the roof besides Luffy at this point, because Luffy's being carried by Zoro. It shows them all dodging this move, and just like Zoro did at the beginning of chapter 1002, you actually see Killer with his Punisher blades. He's deflecting the demolition gust, the wind scythes. So yeah, that was another really cool Killer moment. I wanted to squeeze that in there. But now we're going to go on to the next bit, because at this point, as Kaido's attacking, we fade back down to the battle below, and there's a conversation going on about the fight and how it doesn't seem like the samurai should be winning this fight, and they're not really winning this fight, but they definitely, like, the whole attack in general shouldn't have gone down the way that it did, but their surprise attack was super effective. And this conversation is happening as we're kind of seeing like a few things happening down below under the roof. They're talking about how rubble is falling, but they're on an island and there's no escape. And when you see who is saying these conversations, you see Orochi's severed head, which I really hope that Orochi stays dead. I really do. But the fact that we have not seen Orochi's body and the nature of his devil fruit makes me think that Orochi is not dead, and I think this is just another clever swerve showing us Orochi's head. But the person who is saying it is an agent of Cypherpole Aegis Zero, who is still on the island. We knew that Cypherpole Aegis Zero, or CP0 as I'm going to refer to them from now on, we knew that CP0 was in Wano. We didn't know they were still in Wano. So they're there, and not only are they there, they're on Onigashima. And they are setting up this, it's the same members of Aegis Zero. It's not like Lucci or Stussy or Kaku, but it's the same members of CP0 that showed up on Dressrosa to take care of the whole situation and clarify that Doflamingo hadn't actually resigned from the Seven Warlords. But they have a board in front of them. And I want to mention this in my video. The board is, everyone in all of their reviews, all the reviews I've seen, are saying that this board is a go board. And it makes sense, because at this point, it's kind of, what they do with the board is they represent the pieces to this battle on the board. And they show how, they say that there are 27,000 of Kaido's forces on Onigashima, and there are 5,000 of the samurai's forces on Onigashima. So they show this by representing Kaido's forces with the black pieces and the samurai with the white pieces. And they show how currently, because of the way that the battles are laid out, everyone on the samurai's forces are spread out, and they're all fighting battles in different areas, and they're surrounded by these massive amounts of numbers. So they show on the go board that all of the white pieces, the 5 white pieces that they have on the board, are completely surrounded by the 27 black pieces they have on the board, and all cut off from each other. Not a single white piece is touching. Now, I want to say that everyone who is calling this a go board, and it does look like a go board, and honestly, it's probably going to be a go board, but I just want to put it out there so that if I am correct, I can say that I was right. I think that it also could be a Othello game board. Because one of the things that people don't seem to remember, and I honestly can't blame them because it's been a while since we've seen them, but we do see her in this chapter in a brief glimpse. Tama is on the island, and Tama's power is really, really useful against the beast pirates, because any beast pirate, any gifter, anybody who is a Zoan type devil fruit or an animal in general seems to be affected by her power. If they eat one of the dumplings that she pulls off from her cheek, they basically obey her every command. And in Othello, in Go, the whole point of the game is to separate your enemy's pieces. You want to build out your walls and capture your enemy within your territory. But in Othello, it's played on the same board, but the pieces are laid out differently. And in the panel, the pieces are laid out like you would play them in Go, where you play the pieces on the line, whereas in Othello, you play them within the squares. But in Othello, the whole point of the game is to swap the enemy's pieces. So I think that we could get a moment where Tama and Usopp, because Tama's with Usopp and Nami, Tama and Usopp could start taking all of these dumplings and Usopp could snipe them into the mouths of the Beast Pirates, and those 27,000 forces of the Beast Pirates will start moving to the other side and swapping. So those black pieces will swap, much like in a game of Othello, to white and flip the numbers. But so right after this, they have this whole conversation during this scene. I don't want to glance over it, but I do want to get to the final panel, like the last thing that happens. But so the whole conversation between Eiichiro is they're talking about how it really doesn't matter to them who wins or who loses, because to them, it's pirates taking each other out. And the balance of the world will be shifted in favor of the government. Because whether the worst generation loses or the Yonko lose, that's 2 Yonko down or a bunch of really troublesome pirates. So it's the worst generation are troublesome pirates, the Yonko are troublesome pirates. Either way, the world government is going to win here. And so after this conversation happens with Eiichiro, we go back up to the roof and there's smoke everywhere. Dust, rubble, everything. And we see the final panel, which broke the internet. I'm so mad I got it spoiled for me. You see Big Mom and you see Kaido in his hybrid form. And it is, you don't see his hybrid form, but he's in his hybrid form. It's expressly stated that he is in his hybrid form because Kid says, why does he look like that? And Law says, oh, this must be his man-beast form. And he's completely in silhouette. And then the chapter ends there. Kaido says, oh, you know what? This is getting fun. And Big Mom says, I was just about to say the same thing. Chapter ends. No break. Next chapter is coming out on Valentine's Day. It's crazy. It is absolutely nuts. So overall, these 2 chapters together, I loved so much. There's so much set up here. A lot of really cool stuff happened. Zoro is really intense, and this is really, as much as I think that this arc is gonna like really set aside Luffy and push Luffy towards the path of becoming the Pirate King, I think this is really solidifying how strong Zoro is as the almost first mate. It's not expressly ever stated that he's the first mate, but everyone kind of knows that Zoro is the first mate. So it is now kind of becoming more of a relationship where Roger and Rayleigh, they're both incredibly strong. And I know we don't know a whole lot about them, but we know that Rayleigh is incredibly, incredibly strong. So as much as Luffy is going to become and start getting to the level of the Pirate King, Zoro is going to be right there with him. Zoro is one of the supernovas, and a lot of people tend to forget that. He is part of the worst generation. So he is going to be at least on par with those people. And I really think that we might finally see a measure of Zoro's true power in this arc. And I'm really excited for what's going to happen with Kid and Killer. I'm going to try and shoehorn in my prediction for chapter 1004. I do not think that we are getting the Man-Beast form reveal next chapter. A lot of people think that we are. I don't think we're going to see Kaido's hybrid. I think that we are going back down for the next chapter. And I said this last video that I made that I hoped that we were going to go see some of the other fights. I think we're going back down to the other fights. And here's why. I don't think that Oda, at this point, especially if he was gearing up to end Act 3, I don't think that he would have silhouetted Kaido if he was going to reveal him in the next chapter. As much as I want to see it, as hype as I am to see it, I don't think it's going to happen. What I do think is going to happen is we're going to go around, we're going to see everything that's going on, and if we are following a traditional 5-act kabuki play, Act 3 will be ending in tragedy. So we're going to have an entire chapter where we are not going to see what is happening on the rooftop. And then this is, I really hope that I'm right here. If I call this, I'm going to absolutely lose my mind. But we're going to go back up to the roof on the last page. The last page of chapter 1004, we're going to go back up to the roof and we're going to see everyone destroyed. And that's where we're going to end. We're not going to see we might not even, Kaido might go back out of his man-beast form, but everyone's going to be laid out. And that's going to be the end of Act 3. I really think that it's ending next chapter because I just feel like with the pacing and how we've gone, we've had 3 consecutive chapters in a row where we have gotten fights. Like it is one fight scene. And that is so rare because Oda really likes to like move all around the map in a single chapter or move around and go like, this chapter was just this fight. We're going to this fight now. Or like this chapter is going to focus on like 3 fights. But the past 3 chapters, 1001 to 1003, all of those chapters have been the fight on the roof between the Yonko and the new generation who are up on the roof. So I think that it makes sense that we're getting the end of Act 3 next chapter. I think that that's the way the chapter is going to end. Is a lot of people are predicting that the tragedy is going to be the fall, the plummet of Onigashima, but I think it's going to be the defeat of everyone that's up on the roof. And then everyone that's downstairs is going to have to kind of try and figure out a way to get them back up and running so that they can actually take down Kaido and Big Mom later in the arc. So yeah, that's pretty much all the thoughts that I have. Man, this is such a long video, and I'm so sorry that I'm going to be posting like almost a half-hour video. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed Chapter 1003. It actually made Chapter 1002 feel much better for me. Thank you guys so much for listening to me ramble. Honestly, I have only posted 2 chapter reviews. They're pretty much the only thing I'm putting on this channel right now. I'm really, really appreciative of everyone who watches, and if you like what you hear, please consider liking and subscribing. It would absolutely mean the world to me. If you like me, as I say at the end of every video, I do videos and I stream with my brother at another channel called Division 9 Gaming. You can find us there. All of our links, our Twitch link and our YouTube link, are going to be in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching once again. I don't mean to keep repeating myself, but it does really mean the world to me. And I will see you guys next week for Chapter 1004.